someone said, "Why am I going to pay $500 for a picture of a hobo?"
I always thought Kyle Beckerman was a good player.
Fire's sticking their foot in it.
They said they were going to cut my food rations.
Cork soaking.
There is no possible way to articulate the malaise, the lack of ambition, the way it's felt for so long to be a fan better than he did. Welcome back, and on this episode of the Enemies of a Fire podcast, we are going to be talking about the US Open Cup debacle. We are going to talk about scab referees, and James would like a deep dive on some of these players. So, with that said, I am FC Neo Tokyo. That is DPG. That is James. And gentlemen, what is up?
Woo! Let's go. Got a lot to talk about. I'm going to kick it off with and just tell you who I saw at the airport. You guys would not believe. You guys know I went traveling this weekend. You wouldn't believe who I saw at the airport. I saw two Chicago Red Star players in their kits.
Oh, no way.
You'll never guess who. It was Sam Kerr and Julie Ertz.
Wait a second. So you were really traveling.
I was traveling, and all of a sudden I turn and I'm like, oh, "Is that Sam Kerr?" And then I look next to her. I'm like, "Is that Julie Ertz? Why are they in their Chicago Red Stars kits? I thought they weren't on the team anymore." I was very surprised.
Well, I mean, free swag is free swag, no matter who you are, right?
Sometimes I still wear my old stuff from my old jobs
there you
to walk around the house. So it is what it is.
You also might still be able to catch him there if you stop by baggage claim number 7. So don't be a stranger at Midway.
Isn't it wild that the Chicago Red Stars had the best women's player in the world on their team at one point?
It's wild that they're still advertising it.
Fair. And then
she's been off the team since 2021.
Man, I really feel like, and this is my personal opinion, as much as somehow MLS got lucky enough to really take hold, I really feel like, and I'm going to butcher it now, I don't even remember what the NWSL, I'm pretty sure they really screwed up and missed their opportunity.
There's a new women's league coming.
Well, that too, they got D1s. So USL, like the W League, basically got D1 standing, as well as NWSL, which is like what happened when we had NASL and the USL, where they both had Division 2 standing there for like 2 years. It's a mess, and it's a total missed opportunity. When we had the epicenter of women's soccer, we treated it like minor league, and then Europe said, "Oh crap, let's get serious about this."
They caught up real fast, didn't they?
Real fast.
Yep.
I mean, there weren't teams that could compete. Now I feel like NWSL teams wouldn't be able to compete in the Champions League. I really don't think they would anymore. And I don't know. I don't even know who the Red Stars have anymore. Like Yuki's gone. We'll see. We'll see what happens.
To go further on that, back to the men's side of it, it's just the problems are now being exposed on the men's side with MLS's rejection of the US Open Cup and now trying to make some sort of only 8 MLS teams are going to play. And right now, that problem is blowing up in their face with all the fans. I think it's with all the fans. Like, we're all like, all right, I didn't really care too much about the US Open Cup, but I still think it should be played. It's a quality game. It is a worthwhile game. It is way more worthwhile. I'm more likely to watch a U.S. Open Cup game than I am a CCL game. But here's the thing. That's not.
Or even a League Cup game.
But I'm not or a League Cup game. But I'm not everybody, because there are a lot of Liga MX fans out there who would be chomping at the bit for that type of opportunity. So I mean, apples to oranges there. But
it's crazy because we live. We support a team that's one of the 10 or 6 even that care about the US Open Cup. Like, we super care about it. So to me, this is just a sad development, because I really do like the idea of the second division teams beating the big boys, I like when they get to come play at the big stadiums. I like when our guys got to go play at a small stadium. It's just,
like that. It should be the little guys go, the big guys go play at the small stadiums. Bring the fans with you, so that way the other team could get those tickets and those. I mean, that's what they try to do. I think over in England, and those create those special environments that I've watched on TV, and I'm seeing Arsenal go against this lowly little team, and like all their fans are all shithouse, but they're all having like the greatest time of their life, even though they're getting killed by Arsenal. They're like,
it's crazy you mentioned that, because I think I read an article one time where you had one of these like national league teams over there in England, and I guess they drew a Premier League team, and they were like, oh my God, they were like super happy because of the income they were going to receive from the television deals, from all the away fans coming. It was pretty much just going to...
That could fund their promotion.
Exactly. That was going to
fund their game could fund their promotion. Yeah. And that's the joy of it, I think.
And that's the mess of American soccer. Like the fact that is not here. And now you have, as you just talked about, there's 2 D1 statuses now going to be out there for women's soccer. Pretty soon it's also going to be the case for the men's league, because MLS has basically just separated itself from US soccer with this decision, with some of these, because it's going against the US Soccer Federation and fighting them on these plays.
Well,
it's now bigger than the federation isn't the English Premier League? Isn't the English Premier League bigger than the FA?
I mean,
it broke away. That's how it exists. It broke away from the football league. That's why it even exists.
Well, here's the thing, and if you look at it from a business standpoint, you're gonna make more money from CCL games, especially when you're playing against Liga MX teams.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna make money off League Cup games because you're obviously playing against Liga MX teams. But then you also look at the US Open Cup, and it's like you're not really gonna make money. The only teams that might bring fans are usually the MLS teams, but that only happens in the later stages of the tournament. And at the same time,
should we let the Liga MX teams into the US Open Cup?
No, I don't think so.
Is, you risk losing players through injury. It's tougher for teams that have to participate in the CCL, the Leagues Cup, the US Open Cup, and they still have to worry about the regular season. So I could see it from that point of view. If you're like an LAFC fan or an LAFC, part of the LAFC coaching staff, where it's a headache. You're like, oh my God, we're gonna have to rotate so many times.
So send the second team. Yeah.
But then you look at us, the Fire fans, we love it because you know what? There's only 3 tournaments we play in. Besides,
we never play in the playoffs.
Yeah, we've never made it to CCL, right?
So it's either League Cups or US Open Cup, and I will take US Open Cup over League Cup any day of the week.
Well, here's the big problem. Here's our biggest problems. It's kind of twofold. Leagues Cup was awesome last year, and that the problem is it was only awesome in a bubble. It was like a good World Cup. Like it's not going to be good every year. Just last year it was really cool because Messi delivered on every game. He played amazing. He didn't get hurt instantly, and they won. And like the games were good. So it's like it was a hit. But that's the problem. It's almost like, cut off your nose to spite your face kind of thing, right? But here's the biggest issue we have, I think, in the world of soccer. Don't get me twisted. I would love more than anything Pro Rel. I mean, it's wild to think a not giant, but a big city like Detroit is in the 3rd division of soccer in America, right? So
why couldn't they march their way up to the top division, right?
Well, they could,
because they need investors.
Well, but this is what I'm getting at. The problem is I want Pro Rel. I want the US Open Cup and No Leagues Cup. I want CCL to be awesome. I love seeing Joe Public play Monterey, right? Like I love the CCL. I that's why I hate the idea of when people want to merge CONCACAF and CONMEBOL. I hate it because I feel like the better we get, we raise up people like the Honduras gets better, Costa Rica gets better, Mexico stays better. You know what I mean? Things like that. But here's the scary part is I feel like every league in Europe that we cherish, and they have the FA Cup, and they have Pro Rel, and it's beautiful. They are spending every minute of every day trying to find a way to make the MLS system work where they are. It's not America is never going to adopt soccer the way it's meant to be. The rest of the soccer world is going to fall into the NFL model, and that's kind of sad.
A lot of things, and you're right. I agree with you on that. If you want that vision, there's a lot of things that need to happen. First and foremost, you're going to have to separate MLS from the owners of the teams. Like, pretty much just tell them, hey, you're on your own. You're in charge of your own finances. These are the roster rules. That's it.
And no longer are they an individual entity or whatever they claim
no
to be.
longer. And the thing is, for an owner, for an owner for like Joe Mansueto, he wants that.
Yeah, he's
only top 15, dude. How many teams are in there in MLS? There's like 22 or
30.
26?
30.
28, 30?
No, there's 28 or 29.
28. Well, Joe Mansueto's only like number 15 most richest billionaire.
But that's because he wants to put in money. He'll put in money in the team.
He's definitely spending money. I mean, Kuipers was 12 to 14 million.
But then you look at a team that's like a small market team, like your Colorado, to a certain extent, even New England.
Yeah,
those guys don't want to spend money. I mean, those guys they're happy where they're at.
That's wild that Boston is a small market team, you're saying.
Well, Robert Kraft doesn't want spending.
And they have Bruce Arena as their coach before all the hubbub.
Which we still don't know what happened with Bruce Arena.
But it seems like he's getting reinstated.
That wild.
Oh, you heard about that BS with what's his face? The Philly player, Wagner, Wagner.
We were going to get to that. No punishment, basically. No freaking punishment for Kai Wagner. Kai Wagner.
Yeah.
Unfreaking believable. But
they should make him a lot more expensive in MLS Fantasy.
Dude, he is the top-rated defender in MLS Fantasy, by the way.
I know.
He was the number one defender as far as price. Mm-hmm. And it's just like and then people are getting pretty excited about Van Zier, and I understand, like, there's times where there's, like, cultural differences and you don't understand things, but then there's also bullshit, and this seems like some bullshit. Like, I guess that's my take on that. But, oh, man, long live the Open Cup is what I say.
Long live the Open Cup. But that's not the only thing. That's not the only thing that MLS has been doing a little weird lately. I'm watching this Miami RSL game off the side here as we film this podcast. Last 10 minutes here. Messi is up 1-0. And I'm looking at this referee who's definitely refereed before, but he is not an MLS referee. What is going on with that?
I'm ignorant to the situation other than the fact that the referees are striking for money. And to be honest, due to my food poisoning, I didn't pay attention to how much they get paid, but whatever it is, I'm sure it's not enough.
It's not enough. And I think I read somewhere that, they usually have to fly coach. I think they're only allowed maybe like out of their like 70 flights or whatever it is, they're only allowed like maybe 2 or 3 flights where they get to fly on business class. And
they're a business, right?
Yeah, for real.
Yeah. And so they want 25% more money.
How do you think Nelson Rodriguez flies?
First class.
Definitely not on Spirit.
Is there a clown suitcase that he just he probably just goes to the check-in, climbs inside of his clown suitcase, leaves it with a check-in tag, and then the attendant's like, oh, somebody must have left this, I'll put it on the plane. And that's how he gets to places.
Yeah.
You're right. He's such a cheapskate. He probably hangs out at the airport for 6 hours waiting for someone to cancel their flight.
Yeah. No, you know what? Since he's Don Garber's buddy, he probably rides with Don Garber in his private jet.
Do you think he has a soft spot for Chicago, or a hard spot?
No.
I hope not. He is the harbinger of death, dude, because he is the one that killed Chivas USA, which needed to die, but you didn't need to tell the whole league, like, look, at this man is gonna take this to the end of life for this team.
Jesus.
And then they gave him to Chicago, like, Lou, you guys don't know what you're doing here. He knows the league. And that dude, he just basically just robbed the cupboard blind, and left, and then Joe Mansueto has had to dig through all this bullshit.
Yeah,
But,
clean house, by the way.
Yeah, for real. And then Nelson, and then he's behind this U.S. Open push for the Major League Soccer teams to not be involved, which is just so stupid. But anyway, I'm sorry. I think there should be a clear difference between incidental fucking reckless calls, but there's not bad reckless fucking calls. There's one bad fucking reckless call. Do you know what I mean?
We're back here on Enemies of the Fire, about to talk scabs and a few other things here. DPG, that Enrod story, you got that in your back pocket?
Yeah.
What's going on with the scabs?
All right, with the scabs. So a lot of these scab referees, they're from across the world. I think they got them from Spain. Most of them are from like the USL leagues. Like they pretty much went through the whole woodwork.
So I mean, these guys aren't like, high school refs, rec league refs, gym school teachers.
They're not MLS seasoned, so to speak.
All right.
So that's basically the guys that are refereeing the match while we wait for this strike to be over. I'm hoping it's over soon. So far, I don't know about, watching this Miami or Real Salt Lake game. I don't know if the quality. Yeah, I saw that too.
Yep.
I don't think the quality has dropped in terms of refereeing. I mean, then again, there's not really a high bar for referees.
That's my guy.
So there you go. So I mean, I don't know.
I didn't start him though. He's a sub.
Later.
He's on my sub. He's a sub on my bench.
So what you're talking about, DPG, is these are not just your average like Joe Schmo off the street. But honestly, man, this kind of like,
it's not like the movie The Replacements.
Yeah.
I know this is gonna take me
every time.
No, go ahead. I was gonna say this is gonna take me a second to get to, but I'll make this as short and sweet as possible.
I mean,
I feel like I'm always hard to take a hard stance. Like I'm done with MLS forever because like I can't really get into overseas soccer like that. Like I watch teams when they have Americans on them. Like last year I watched Leeds. This year I watch AC Milan. You know what I mean? Like I can't find a connection with those teams. And so it doesn't matter how bad Chicago sucks. I'm going to be into Chicago, So like the thing that was
what if there's another Chicago team and it's not an MLS? And they have Robert Lewandowski.
Well, that would be a whole nother conversation. But what I was getting at is
agree on that. I'm with you on that one. And
I'll talk about that more because I want to hear the story about Enrod. But I got something to talk about with Robert Lewandowski here in a little bit.
We're going to hit Robert Lewandowski.
Keep that in your front pocket.
But I wanted to say this. The moment I was almost done with Major League Soccer, the moment I really almost was done was when the players in Major League Soccer before 2020 finally came to a decision on the CBA. And then because of the pandemic and the fact that like they just played, they were like, oh, it's all good. We'll just ratify this next chance we get. Who cares, right? We've all agreed on this. And Major League Soccer pulled the rug out from under players and went back on a lot of things that they were going to do.
Yes,
and really slowed things down. And that was disgusting. So the thing with the referees, I'm kind of just pissed that they didn't just make it go away instantly. You know what I mean? Like, just make it right. Just stop being in the way and being a pain in the ass.
I mean, I got a couple of other instances. Vegas had to deal with this with all of their cooks recently, just before the Super Bowl. All the dining industries went on strike, but they all came to deals with various hotels. And then there's another place that has been doing this. It's the NFL. The NFL has billions of dollars. Billions. Yep. And what is their number one issue right now besides the issue with sports betting and potential corruption? It also has to do with the referees, to avoid them getting sued for corruption. And they have billions of dollars. And literally, I listen to Mike Florio. He's a lawyer, former lawyer and football analyst. And he talks about like NFL is opening the door for themselves to get sued for corruption because the referees are just blowing these games in visible ways that the crowd is seeing. And if you see that here in MLS, where, you know, these guys are trying to compete with EPL, they're trying to compete with La Liga, they're trying to compete with the biggest and the best of the world, Liga MX, here domestically. You need to be getting the calls right. The one thing MLS has gotten right so far, VAR. They have gotten VAR right in many ways where other leagues have. Yeah, they have in many ways. So I'll give them kudos for that. But this referee stuff, they got it. They got to nip it in the bud. They got to nip it in the bud.
You got to fix that, because if there's not an issue tonight with Messi, there's gonna be an issue this weekend. And you know what? It's gonna be the biggest talking point of the week.
What happens if Messi gets fouled hard and because they didn't properly card somebody earlier?
Yeah, because you lose control of the game.
Yeah, and the thing too is, you can't say it's a money thing when you're charging expansion teams almost $500 million just to join the league, on top of the other fees. Not to mention the Apple TV deal that they just signed last year. So it can't be a money thing. You know, God knows how many Messi jerseys have sold.
Messi just missed a crazy goal.
Unbelievable amount of Messi jerseys, I'm sure.
So you're not gonna tell me, wow, we can't give the refs 25%, or you can't say we can't give the refs more business class. What's the point of having airline sponsorships? What's
right? Exactly. What's the point? Why degrade your product to a point where it's worse because you're not willing to pay for the best? It's it just goes hand in hand with their sandbagging. But
they got to get this right, and they're not. And MLS is definitely fucking up this, because they stand upon a house of cards at the moment. Because if US Federation opens the door for D1 status in another league, what does Lexi Laws call it? Another mousetrap, he calls it. Another mousetrap comes along.
Of course he will.
And another mousetrap comes along, and all of a sudden they have a team they have 8 teams, and one of them's in Chicago, and it's got Lewandowski. I mean, like, and it's got connected to USL, and it's got promotion relegation, and Detroit FC can get it way. Like, there's a way somebody can come out there with a competing product to MLS, and all those valuations that you were just talking about all crumble. The MLS deal with the Apple TV crumbles because they could back out of it at any time. And so, I mean, like, what if Messi leaves next season? What happens when Messi leaves next season? Who are they going to bring in to maintain the Apple cart and keep it from spilling? MLS is in the
there's not a single human big enough to do that. That's why you need to really open up the rosters to have a collection of really good players.
Yep.
All right. So hold on. Before we go to break,
we got a couple minutes. Story.
We got to hear DPG's story about Nelson Rodriguez. Because part of me feels like he's going to end up telling me that he's behind this referee shit too.
I bet. Let's connect the dots.
So back a couple of years ago, I want to say this was 2015, 2016, when they had just finished building the fire pitch. They invited me, to the grand opening event. It was like only a selective few season ticket holders, or club season ticket holders, I think, and supporter group members. And I remember that it was a cool, it was a cool party. Voko Panovich was making rounds. A couple of former Fire players were making the rounds, talking to everybody. And then Nelson comes up. So Nelson, being Nelson, I guess the 4 wasn't good enough. He pulls a chair and stands on the chair to give a speech in the fire pitch. Everybody. So, like, straight up, he just literally pulled up a chair, stood up. Not even Andy Hoffman did this. He pulls up a chair, he stands up, and he gives this whole rousing speech like it's fucking Braveheart. Like,
freedom!
Talking about tradition, passion, honor, going, saying how this is a successful club, blah, blah, blah. Like, he was literally trying to light a fire in someone's ass, because I think even my brother was, like, inspired by it. He's like, wow, that was, that's really good.
So he was a great orator?
He was a great orator. right before he decided to derail this club. So
Yeah, we have, oh my God, we have been down that road so many times. It's shocking. So did you get to actually talk to Nelson, shake hands, and be like, "What's up?"
I think I did. I mean, he struck me as, I guess at the moment, an okay guy. I guess just trying to be friendly with everybody.
He's a human being.
He was just being a human
Are
being.
you sure about that?
Or is
You
he
know,
a
but
robot?
the thing is, I probably would have been a little more receptive had I known his plans in the long term. Like, what were his plans for this club? Because the person that I saw was a guy that really cared, but what we got in the end was a guy that really wants to take everything down and turn us into like the next Chivas USA.
He's taking MLS down too. I mean, taking him out. Is he responsible for this U.S. Open Cup decision, or at least somewhat behind it?
Yeah, he's like the spearhead of this U.S. Open Cup decision. He just, again, it's like I tell you, we as MLS fans complain so hard about needing to embrace what soccer truly is, but the problem is the money guys everywhere where we think it's pure and beautiful are looking for every way imaginable to get what we have here, and that's brutal.
Speaking of brutal, how about a commercial break? We'll be right back. Thanks for joining us here on Enemies of Fire. We'll see you right after. I'm going to talk to you about a little bit more about Lewandowski. We're going to talk about Ezra Hendrickson. We got to talk about Shaqiri. We got a lot more on the platter. Be right back here on Enemies of Fire.
Now, I know no one really likes a commercial break in the middle of their podcast, but we at Enemies of the Fire think it's good to every now and again try to grapple with the demons within your own heads. And honestly, I think the very first step to grappling with those demons is hitting the like button. Sound.
Welcome back to Enemies of Fire. Thanks for hanging back with us from that commercial break. So I keep talking about this Lewandowski hint. Guys, Lewandowski is not coming to the Chicago Fire.
No, I don't think so.
Ever. The only way he comes to Chicago is in the form of another league and another team. Boom. There it is.
That's good.
Well, I think we had our opportunity because Barcelona tend to make rash decisions, right? So we had our opportunity when he was not playing well. Then he started bagging some goals before we had an open transfer market. And, you know, like, because I did hear Kuipers was our second choice, which I'm not mad about. Like, cool. But, like, it had to have been Lewandowski, right? That had to have been our first couple phone calls.
You
right?
guys don't think that there was guys out there that you could spend $12 to $14 million on that's better than Kuipers?
Let me word it this way. Yes, but no.
Will they come?
Would they want to go to Chicago?
Well,
yeah.
I think the one thing that Joe understands that I really like is he's not trying to get your over-the-hill guys. Like Shaqiri, as much as he was an older player, he didn't come here to retire. He came here as like he had a lull in his career. Let's get that bump back.
He didn't think he came here to retire. I don't think he's going to either. But
no, he's not.
That's more. But Schweinsteiger,
Schweinsteiger
came here to retire.
But Joe doesn't want that. Joe wants to build on stuff. Joe likes selling the young guys. So I feel like Joe is the kind of owner who wanted somebody who wanted a Kuipers, a younger guy. He's not the youngest guy in the world.
Who's buying a 30-year-old, semi-okay striker?
He's not 30. He's like 26.
I'm saying in 4 years. I'm saying in 4 years if you're trying to sell him or something like. Well, I feel like this guy's might be an MLS 5-year guy. I mean, like the way it's set up, he might be here for the next 4 or 5 years. That's why I say Lewandowski is not coming to the Chicago Fire because Kuipers is here for the next 4 or 5 years. I mean, it seems
we kind of have that situation if Lewandowski were to come here, it's going to be like another Schweinsteiger situation.
Yeah, it's going to be too late.
It's going to be too late. He's probably going to be pretty good in the first season, and even then, when I say that's with a grain of salt, because people were probably saying the same thing with Shaqiri. What if we were to bring him in, pay him a crap ton of money, and he only scored 6 goals? I mean, I mean, the only
I know a
people that are
couple. I know a lake and a couple rivers. No, I'm kidding. But
gonna
but no, seriously, you're totally right. Like, what if he comes and just busts? Like,
I mean, speaking of potential bust, I was reading that Luis Suarez can barely play soccer with his kid. Like, and here he is on the side. You know, is he going to get through this MLS season?
dude, Miami's a retirement team.
Well, you've heard this, right, DPG? You heard this story about him being like, my knee, I can barely walk. Dude,
Yeah.
that was an interview he did right before going to Miami. Like, he was desperate to get out of his team. And of course he's going to say dumb crap like that.
Okay.
Yeah, he was like saying he was injured.
He wanted to get out of
was injured.
I can't believe everybody fell for it. Like, he was scoring goals in the league looking great, like in Brazil looking good. And he's like, I can't even walk. My knee, it's exploding.
I can't even play soccer with my kid. If he looks at me, I fold.
Yeah, exactly.
And the thing too is that, well, here's the thing too. He's not that. He didn't look that great right now either. I mean, he looks a little bit out of shape.
He looks like he needs something to chew on.
Yeah,
he could be out of shape. But like, you don't see it as much as the guys who come in at the beginning of a season, but you always see it when the guys come in the summer. It takes about a half a season for you to get used to MLS. And I mean, we don't appreciate the idea of how much travel you have in America versus some of these other countries.
Oh, yeah. Which is why it's ridiculous that they don't have good flights.
Well, I mean, there was a time and place where this league was on the grind, was struggling.
Isn't it official that they're going to have a charter flights for the teams now?
Yes.
You
used to have like 4, and you had to like strategically decide which charter flights you had, because LA with Beckham wanted to buy all charter flights. They had this like rule. You could only have so many. So it's just like, now I think they're kind of laxing on that and like, yeah, of course, charter all your flights and stuff.
Yeah.
It just, the league is outgrowing itself. It's got like, its shirt is one size too small. Like, it's at the precipice of like, this is the time to explode. We should have like quadrupled the salary cap and got rid of all the dumb labels. Like, just quadruple or quintuple the salary cap and
there's
let it
not
just
enough
blow
support,
up.
and there wasn't.
It's mind-boggling that all the rest of Chicago professional teams, they're all chartered. And the reason I know this is because I actually used to work for the ground handling company that used to service the charter flights, like the Blackhawks, the White Sox, the Bulls, the Cubs. All those guys were flying out charters, and it wasn't just a charter plane. This was like a legit, like, it was not even that. It was like a legit American Airlines plane. Like, American Airlines literally pulled the plane from their fleet just to charter the team. That's how much pull some of these teams had. Obviously, it's always nicer when it's like a private company because it's configured in a way where they have tables and whatnot. But the fact that they're actually able to tell American, hey, I need to charter a flight, and they're like, okay, we'll just pull out our 3 o'clock Denver flight and then take you guys wherever you want.
Yeah, this league, we're at such a weird place where, yes, we're not the richest league in the world. Yes, we probably would never be even if they said no salary cap, the tradition of Europe would still win out for about 10 to 15 years before all the good players were over here, right?
That being said, MLS still has some fun stars to watch. Hany Mukhtar.
Oh my God, dude. It's just the league is better. Like,
Acosta.
I remember when I first really got in the league was 2007. And just to think, like, we had 16 teams in the league. Toronto FC was the new shiny thing.
Most were not good.
Not even that. Try watching a game from like the early 2000s, like 2000, 2001, 2002, I want to say. Even the worst part was like 2003.
It was all Route 1 soccer. The ball was in the air constantly, just boom, header. It was ugly soccer, man. You had moments of brilliance, and you had Ricardo Clark kicking the fish. But
but not only that, the league itself looked like a farm league, like straight up.
Oh yeah,
like seeing Chicago Fire play at Cardinal Stadium, Cardinal Stadium, and it looked like a legit, like a college, which is a college stadium, but that was across the league. A lot of these games look like they were college D1, teams playing. and not a whole lot of crowds to go into these games either.
No, it was Beckham. Beckham legitimized the league, and after Beckham, other teams started finally getting good and acquiring certain talents that like you'd actually want to go see, like the Didier Drogbas and the Kobe Jones.
Go look at those old FIFAs, man. You want to talk about some good teams? The Chicago Fire had some big name players.
Lubos Kubek.
You know what I mean? Some huge players. Yeah.
Well, think about it this way. I think I was reading a book about MLS, the history of MLS, and I think that at the end of either the 2002 season or 2003, the league was going to fold. They were already saying we're done.
Yeah. They got rid of the two Florida teams, and
they were we're done. That's it. We're going to fold the league. We're going to go back to, grassroots level soccer.
They cut off the limb to save the body, and it worked.
Well, and that's the thing is like Don Garber came in and saved the sport. He's not the one to usher. He's not the one to usher it forward. In my opinion, yes,
I think he needs to step down.
I do. I agree. I think retire. Yeah, step down. Be done.
Who's next? It's going to be Nelson Rodriguez, guys. Be careful what you wish for.
No, don't even say that.
He fails right up.
Gucci on Yewu. Let's get him.
You need to bring someone that's going to take the league to the next level.
Right.
Push it further. Don Garber did as much as he can. He turned this league from a failing, about to fold league into, a billion-dollar, multi-billion-dollar league now. Some of these MLS teams are worth in the billions now. I think, $1 billion at least.
Well, I think LAFC is the highest one at 800 something million. I think so. Basically $1 billion, right? Give or take a couple $100 million.
House of Cards. House of Cards, though. I mean,
so
how soon could it just all fall apart?
You think it? I think quite the opposite. I think. I think it could if they stay so conservative with it, because, dude, we are at the precipice of a perfect storm.
The World Cup,
the World Cup, and not only just the World Cup, but the most talented U.S. team we've ever seen.
That is true.
So what we're talking about is little kids looking up the pool sick, being like, "Oh man, this Kansas City stadium's awesome! I can't wait to see my local team now." You know what I mean? Or
you just mentioned how MLS got started because they literally rolled the back of the USA '94 World Cup.
Well, no, it was a requirement.
It was a requirement.
To get the World Cup.
It was a requirement, but they literally used that to kind of jumpstart the league. Now we're in a position where we're not jump starting the league. We're actually gonna go from gas and oil power to nuclear power. Yeah. Like a nuclear reactor, type of deal. So you're right. You're gonna have a bunch of kids, say, hey, what team does he play for? Wow, this is a cool stadium. I want to follow my local team. You're gonna have more fans be interested in MLS. Probably the most we've seen since ever.
It's already like that. Just the league is already so insanely different than it was.
It is.
Even think about 2016. Remember how good that Seattle and Toronto team was?
It was fun.
Yeah.
It was fun even though I wasn't a fan of them.
But I bet really if we broke it down, there's 5-6 teams better than those two teams in the league right now. You know what I mean? And
so speaking of that, 2017, this was when the Fire played Seattle, where we literally beat the hell out of 4-1. That's probably one of my favorite games of all time because that game was the stadium was packed. It was electric in the air.
It was raucous.
It was ruckus. It was nice weather. It was a warm weather, springtime. I don't even know, but man, we put 4 into Seattle. I think we were tied 1-1 at the half. If there was a time that there was one game that will make you into a Fire fan, that's probably it. That was it.
Yeah, that was. And I've made this point before. The one team I'm super jealous of as a Fire fan is Seattle.
Yeah,
and to never win against those Cascadia teams, and then to put the beat down on Seattle like that. It was beautiful.
It was beautiful, yeah.
Chef's kiss, man. Beautiful.
Guys, so the big thing, though, the big change that MLS made is they changed the DPs. They brought in DPs. That's what's made a league last and brought us to this point where all the teams finally have a talisman, so to speak. And the biggest thing about is we've seen the hit rate on DPs go up.
You're right. People are making better purchases.
Yeah.
And we talk about it in as terms of
Mateus?
MLS 2.0 and MLS 3.0. I think that's what we talk about in terms of as these teams making smarter, better decisions, signing the Cucho Hernandezes, the Thiago Almeidas, so to speak.
Oh, yeah. And
What were you saying?
Well, do you
Tokyo.
remember Lothar Mateus and like Claudio Reyna were
Lothar.
DPs? And they both
yeah,
only played like
people.
they only played like 6 games between them.
Well, there were
You know what I
failures
mean?
there were failures for that MetroStar team, and it's crazy because the MetroStars brought in Mateus. They had brought in a couple of Brazilian guys, and it didn't even work out for them. And this was like, man, I think they had one of the worst seasons that in MLS history that year too.
It's wild, dude. Oh, that was the one time Bruce Arena had he got sacked right away. That was right before he went to LA and started winning everything.
Not only that, but if I remember correctly, I read somewhere that Lothar Mateus supposedly couldn't play because he got hurt for the MetroStars. And they come to find out, the guy was on vacation, like in the tropics with his girlfriend.
Some people really didn't take it seriously. They really thought it was a farmers league, and then they ran into people like Tony Chani who wanted to break your leg because I'm for real.
Wow. Speaking of gonna break my legs, I think that's the commercial sponsors knocking at my door. I'm gonna be right back, guys.
Enemies of the Fire, what's your favorite Fire jersey that you own? Got this old classic kit. The Schweinsteiger. Valspar. The gray. The gray years. 4th of July kit. And my favorite, Chicago flag.
Yeah, dude,
Clyde Sims.
Didn't Stoichkov break some college kid's legs on a preseason game?
Yes.
The college kid, he ended up suing him.
It was I didn't know about that, but it was a very like Pete Rose at the All-Star game kind of moment.
Whoa.
Yeah, so this college kid ended up suing him, saying that he was trying to collect damages because he could have gone pro, and he was trying to collect damages, like what would have been his pro contract or whatnot. I don't know if he won. I don't think he won, but yeah, it was that serious back then.
Dude, well, I mean, that's the thing, like, it was a lot of pride. Like, these guys did not want to get clowned by these DPs, so like most of them would come and get their ass handed to them.
Well, the Fire got their DP. Well, this is before DPs. The Fire got their signings right in their first season. I mean, so right. That's the thing that's crazy as a Fire fan. We got the signings so right. We won it all. The double. And it's been just misery since 2001. And so...
No, because 03 was the Supporter Shield win, right?
Right. So,
Yeah, that was the one. That was the year that they went to the finals too, and they lost to Landon Donovan, San Jose team.
Yeah,
but since the implementation of the DP signing, I mean, Chicago's one of the few teams that just has not really gotten it right. What makes a successful DP signing? Why was Schweinsteiger a miss and Zlatan Ibrahimovic a hit?
That example, see, that's the problem. It's a different story for everybody. Most of the time, I feel like what happens is like the timing. Like Frank Lampard came halfway through a season because remember Manchester City wanted him for a little while, and then all the NYCFC fans were like, "This guy's the worst. He's horrible. He's
similar to Schweinsteiger. He just didn't have his legs.
Yeah, he just had but he had a big year the next year. Schweinsteiger suffered from a man that, like, anytime I hear the name Valko Panovic, all I can picture is him sitting in his locker. The guys are out in the locker room. He's in his office, and he's just trading shots of Rumpelmans with like a living bear, with an actual bear. That's all I can picture when I think that man is.
You don't picture the guy saying, you're eating soup while your wife is getting fucked by some rando.
Did he say that?
Yeah, he did.
Okay, that one line like literally changes everything I thought about Veljko Pavic.
He told the team, I think who said this? Was it Alan Gordon that he mentioned that he's like, yeah, we were in the locker room and then Veljko, I think we were losing and Veljko comes in saying, hey, you guys are eating soup while they're fucking your wife.
That's great. That's a great fucking line.
So you brought up Alan Gordon. Man, it's a very dangerous game to play, but it makes you wonder and think, you know what I mean? Like, for me, I tend to have a little bit more leeway for a guy who uses a slur in the sense of like, let's be honest. In a locker room situation, all the way up until about 10 years ago, it was still cool to throw on the F slur and to like, oh, you're gay when you're bad. You know what I'm saying? So how can you imagine like living in that world for like 20 years and then like you're out on the field? I have a little bit more sympathy for that than say your racial abuses, but still, man, it's hard. It's hard to know who to really root for. Like look at, we talked it to death, but I think like Greg Berhalter is a perfect example of he made a massive mistake that usually would cancel someone.
Yep.
But every action since has proven him to be a different person. So he's not the guy who beats his wife. He's a guy who had a bad situation and has grown and moved on from it.
And I think a lot of it too is, in Greg Berhalter's situation, he knew he messed up when that happened. He actually went to go seek out help.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, it was obvious that
he went to go get help before anybody told him to get help. So it wasn't like, oh, you're caught, now you're going to go get help. No, he actually went, I think he went to therapy.
He went to therapy. He asked her back, he wanted her back. She said no for a while. You know what I mean? She was like, no, I need time. He gave her time. They're together. And unless she lives in a constant fear the rest of her life, it really seems like that was just an incident and not the person. So it's hard to know when these things happen. Like, I just started this conversation out, this podcast out complaining about Kai Wagner and just being like, no, forget that guy. But it's weird. When is it time to forgive and when is it time to be like,
how do people go about making amends? And the other thing is, when they go about making amends, are they being
sincere?
It's like the sincerity and being not only just honest with us, so to speak, but honest with themselves.
And you have to be patient when you make a mistake like that. You have to be patient to allow people to be like, okay, well, yeah, I've seen enough. Like, it's like if you cheat on a significant other, they need to like look at your phone for like a year or two before they start being fully trusting you if they
ever can get to trust you again.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's like, I think we just live in such a society where people double down so hard because they never want to admit a mistake that you just then become, that's who you are. And it sucks, man. It's wild to see. Go ahead.
I was gonna say this. So are we recording, by the way?
Yeah, we are recording.
Okay.
I was gonna ask that earlier and I didn't want to sound
I clicked the record, like you guys kept going, so I just clicked I stopped recording and just kept recording because you guys had some good stuff going. So
put it like this. So I do believe that Kai Wagner should have finished out his, punishment, his, 2-3 game ban, on top of him finishing, sensitivity training or whatever, MLS protocol he had to do. Surprised they didn't include community service in there.
Well, what do you do to Katai?
I would have just said, finish your punishment and then that's it. Just bring him back in the fold. You made a mistake.
It was Katai's wife. What do you? Yeah.
Oh wait, what is Katai?
Remember Katai?
Are we talking about Kai Wagner?
Remember
or
Katai? And Katai's wife. I mean, like, what's the difference if they're both, what's going on there? Why is one guy get chased out of the league and the other guy, he gets a chance to make amends?
Well, I think the big issue, which is wrong, but it's the truth, is Kai Wagner's better. So
the Ray Rice situation.
But also, I think if you're going to split hairs, which is not fun to do, because let's be honest, all this stuff all the isms is effing stupid, and we can go into why, but We're not going to right now. But so I think the issue becomes like, in theory, Kai Wagner isn't out there. Okay, let's put it this way. Kai Wagner used a slur against a person. That was a singular incident that we know about.
Katai's wife used a slur in a tweet.
Katai's wife tweeted out something that was very indicative of who they are as people. I think that's where it was very
that can
obvious.
be debated, because how can we know that Kai Wagner's not that as a person if that's in his lexicon?
Well,
did Katai stood by his wife's comments too? Like he didn't. Did he even apologize?
Maybe that went into it too.
Yeah. He didn't say like, "Oh, I apologize on behalf of my wife's." Like I don't even think that I don't recall like reading that he apologized or anything like that.
No, and then it sucks too. You get those stories later, like CJ Sapong's like, he wouldn't even pass the ball to me. He wouldn't even look at me. Like, it's just, I don't know, man. It just sucks.
It sucks. But then also, so I'll kind of like, going in that same thing, but it's like we talk about forgiving whatever, like, take it from a different aspect. Think about it like in baseball. In baseball, when those guys are taking those performance enhancers, they get
wait a second.
100-game ban.
I got to correct the record. Katai said in an Instagram post after this, this is what Katai said in his own Instagram post, that his wife's posts were a mistake for which he took responsibility, and he apologized for the pain these posts have caused the LA Galaxy family and all allies in the fight against racism. Katai's words, not mine. Continues, Katai said, "I strongly condemn white supremacy, racism, and violence towards people of color. Black lives matter." Katai's words. So, and he gets chased out of the league. But I think it's also at a time where the witch hunt was stronger, where now, if this happened, Katai might be offered a similar situation that Kai Wagner is.
Like Toke said, Kai Wagner's a better player. I think Katai was more or less of a fringe player on LA Galaxy. And rather than deal with that, LA just decided to cut ties with him. You're not going to see Philly cut ties with Kai Wagner for one incident after he did everything that the league required him to. And I'm pretty sure, he did his apologies. He probably apologized personally to Bobby Wood, and that's great and that's fine. But going back to Kai Wagner, or continuing on with Kai Wagner, you want to have him finish the punishment because it makes the league look weaker in terms of handing out punishment for situations like that.
You can't have zero tolerance, quote unquote, and be like, "Oh, he served one game." It's like
in baseball. It's like James, baseball. Fernando Tatis Jr. Freaking guy gets caught with performance enhancers. He gets like 100-game ban or season-long ban. There's no coming back to it. There's no like, I'm gonna go fight it. Nope. You're gonna take your ban and that's it.
Take your bat, your ball, and go home. We'll see you next season.
And
we're gonna drug test you all the time.
Right. Well, and that's what should be done. Now that's even different because I do believe.
How do you drug test for racism though?
Right. Well, that's what I was gonna get. That was what I was gonna get at. I don't want to sound any kind of way, but I'll want to put it this way: like everybody should be allowed to like live their lives as long as they're not bothering other people, which means like. You can deal with cheating. You can cheating is like jail. You cheat, you get your suspension, then you're done, then it's cool. All right, you've served your time, But like when you get down to a racism issue, then you're literally talking about so many other things that actually play into it, just like Katai, let's put it this way, just like how the Chicago Fire didn't make the playoffs, how many times because Katai didn't pass to CJ? You know what I mean? Like you're talking crazy like implications and things about how people feel. Yeah. And I think like it's just like so I kind of have like the Chicago area side of the family and I've got like a hillbilly side of the family. And most of the hillbilly side of the family is pretty cool. Like I was married to a Jamaican woman for quite a number of years. But there's one or two of them that's not. But they still got along with her because in their mind, it's like, oh, you're one of quote unquote the good ones. It's like, no, you missed the point. It's just the only person you gave enough to like get to know. If you got to know people, you would understand who they are.
Yes,
you know what I
hit the
mean.
nail on the head. Yep.
And so it's just like be open to people. And so I will wrap this up by saying, at least my part of this, by saying the thing with Katai is, and even Wagner, I think it's very important. It's not the only thing, but I think it would be very important to go to the rest of the team. And it's like, are you comfortable playing with this guy? And depending on how the team answered, like, again, we only have CJ's story, but like, how many other players feel that same way?
Right.
Like, did they ask the player?
Right.
David Akam was on that team too.
Yeah.
That's
and so
right.
did LA ask all their guys and like Chicharito, or I forget who he was on the team?
Yeah, did they get a vibe? Yeah. And the vibe's like, let's get this guy out of here.
Yeah. So
if you're a locker room cancer or something like that, or you already have a dubious reputation in the locker room, and everybody else in the locker room is cool with each other, you're right. Maybe you got to get rid of the guy that's the cancer.
All right. Speaking of dubious reasons, we're going to head to commercial break. Thanks for hanging out on Enemies of the Fire. When we come back, we're actually going to answer that question. What makes a successful DP signing? We're going to talk about Heitz. We're going to talk about Shaqiri and a couple of Chicago Fire tactics along the way. Closing up shops here soon. Thanks for hanging out on Enemies of the Fire.
Hey guys, this is DPG, and you are listening to the Enemies of the Fire podcast. James, Mitch, and I start this podcast to talk about our favorite soccer club, which is the Chicago Fire. Thanks again for listening. Hope you hit the subscribe button, and go Fire.
Let's talk about that. Welcome back to Enemies of the Fire. We're talking about Sean Johnson and what makes a successful DP signing, even though he's not a DP signing, but he's another one of those decisions that Chicago Fire just miss and whiff on. And Chicago Fire miss on all these DPs. What makes a successful DPG?
I think a lot of it too is that if you're going to bring in a guy, you kind of have to prep him a little bit, or even have a conversation with him prior to him signing where you tell him, hey, I know you're used to getting certain passes, from certain individuals. That one example would be like you're getting passes from Messi, or well, now you are, but at the time, you might be getting stellar passes from stellar players. You might not be getting that when you come to the MLS.
Yeah, your service is not going to be there.
Yeah, your services are not going to be there, which means you might have to hustle a little more. And we also have a lot of hard-hitting tacklers, so you might want to, do some leg muscle workouts.
I think you're hitting on it, though. It takes a certain physicality to be successful. I mean, when you look at the Almirones, when you look at the Lucho Acostas, when you look at the Leo Messis, you see the difference between them and the Beriches and the Jairo Torreses and even the Shaqiris.
That's the thing, though. There's like a common denominator with all those guys. All those guys came from like very physical leagues. So the Argentina, the Primera División, that's a physical league. Like those are hard tacklers. But then that's how you get these hard players that, when it comes to the MLS, it's like the glove fits situation. So, that's what it takes. And just keeping in mind that you're not going to get these that great service. You're going to get it hit harder, but at the end of the day, we need you to score goals.
Yeah,
you got to make magic happen.
I think the main thing that makes a good DP is something that we don't see a lot of, which is just those guys obsessed with winning. Like when the DP rule, was instituted, right? You always heard these big name guys be like, "I can't wait to help grow American soccer."
Yep.
No, dude, you're the guy who went from Real Madrid to Manchester United to Galatasaray. Like, you have won everywhere you go. I want a guy to come here and say like, "Oh, I want to come here and win like 3 cups over the course of the next 2 years and be a club legend."
I thought that Schweinsteiger was a guy who was obsessed with winning. I just think his body. I think his body just wasn't able to.
But
Well,
it's like
you sped that process up by throwing him as a center back. But anyway,
I don't even know,
you,
dude.
you need to have
Schweinsteiger was the best player in the league if nobody could move. Like that's the problem. If everybody's able to move, then Schweinsteiger's not the best player in the league anymore.
Ultimate
And that was
Frisbee rules.
that was the problem when we signed
I
him in
think-
2017.
I think the issue with a lot of the DPs that came in the MLS during the first few years, up until maybe recently, or maybe up until a couple of years ago, was a lot of these guys were coming in just to collect a paycheck, finishing out their careers.
The farm
They
league.
And
didn't have
grow
that hunger.
soccer. They didn't care
grow
about winning
soccer.
games.
They were not hungry for it. They didn't have like the eye of the tiger situation.
hungry
They were
to
not
win.
like, they were just there to pass time, finish out their contract, collect their check, and get their green card, and that's it. But I think now it's becoming different. Now you have these guys that, now for example, we have Kuipers. The guy's like 26, 27. He had a stellar season last year with Ghent. And you bring a guy like that he's hungry. He wants to score goals. That's like the right fit for a DP, But at the same time,
if he's amazing these first 2 years, he gets a move to a Big Five league. If he's really good these next 2 years, he stays with the Fire for, like James said, 5 years and is a club legend.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And the thing too is that, for example, like the situation with Jairo Torres. I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that I don't think he was ready for this league, or I don't think he, this league was what he expected. Not trying to diminish Liga MX or saying MLS is better, but I think, the fact that he came here injured, the fact that, at times he looked out of shape, like he wasn't keeping up with himself. And it's weird because I remember seeing him play at Soldier Field, and he looked like that jersey looked a little tight across the chest. So,
I think that injury he had right before he came was way worse than anyone realized.
And that's the thing. I think that took away his. I mean, he probably wanted to come and win, but it's one thing is wanting to come to win. One thing is actually doing things to want to win. Like, if he was getting out of shape, you would expect this guy to hit the gym, like stay after practice.
Listen to
training,
the club nutritionist.
Well, yeah, but he's
exactly.
like 21 years old. He wants to go clubbing in Chicago, dude. You know what I mean? Like, it's what it is, man.
And that's the thing. It's like you have the guys that get a little money in their pockets and they want to go clubbing, or you have the guys that rather stay after practice and keep training because they have their eye on the prize. They have bigger goals than just going to a club and dancing and drinking and eating all sorts of shit food, So
well, the DP in Major League Soccer makes it so it's just so much more intensity because like think about who was it? Nottingham Forest signed was it Jesse Lingard or whatever, and it didn't really work out, and they shipped him off somewhere else, and they stayed up, right? That was last season, right? And so it's like, how, like, you can't do that in Major League Soccer. You sign Jairo Torres, you're screwed for 2 years.
Yeah.
And he's your DP.
Mean? Yeah, exactly. You're screwed.
Toke, you were talking about club legends just a few minutes ago, and you were saying that Kuipers has a chance to establish himself.
Yes.
Is Nikolic a club legend?
Nah,
Yes.
Dimitri Ralph level.
what?
Just kind of like,
Like,
oh
you're
man,
saying-
that was
Name
that
the
was
best
cool.
strikers in Chicago Fire history.
Ante Razov,
Ante Razov,
Razov.
Brian McBride,
Ryan McBride, Damani Ralph,
Nikolic.
Nikolic. So yes, Nikolic is or was a club legend, or still he's a club legend.
He should be.
You say that, but hold on. You say that, but what just happened? What did we just finally do?
Mm-hmm.
We just put Zach Thornton in the Ring of Fire.
Mm-hmm.
And that is now our fifth player. That's it, right? There are 5 inductees in the Ring of Fire. Am I incorrect?
Well, most of them are from like from that 98 season.
Yeah.
So I think, and that's another thing that needs to get revised is how we do this Ring of Fire thing instead of waiting like a half a decade before we add someone else. Because there are certain individuals that might belong there. And you also have to think about it. What's the criteria to be in the Ring of Fire? Is it just winning an MLS Cup? Is it having, being the Golden Boot winner for one season? Especially this past, 14 years, there hasn't been a lot of pop with this
Actually,
team.
you know what? You just sold me on Nikolic because he did win a Golden Boot. You just sold me. You're
but
right.
then again, Mike McGee won a Golden Boot too.
Was he a striker?
No.
Deeply striker for
McGee,
us?
Mike McGee won the MVP.
Right? He did.
Yeah, Well, see, he started the season off by scoring a hat trick against us. I don't feel like it was all a Chicago Fire MVP.
But the thing is about Mike McGee is that he made that 2013 or 2014 season memorable when he had that MVP. When we had that MVP season, they were calling him Magic Mike. Even when I saw him at the airport one time, I called him Magic Mike. And he thought I was just kind of like joking around with him because his name was Mike. I'm like, no. You're the guy that scored goals for the Fire, man. You're Magic Mike.
Hold on. Oh my God, James, you have to put this in the commercial break. Have you guys seen that little 4-panel comic of Mike McGee back from that season? Where he comes in and these kids are like, they lose their soccer ball down the street and they're like, oh my God, it's Mike McGee. And he's like, don't put ketchup on hot dogs, kids. And then he flies away.
I saw that. Yes.
Where is that?
I'll send it to you, bro. I laugh about that so often. And then remember they did that. You know what, Mike, you've sold me on Mike McGee now. MVP. Yeah. He had that. We did that for him. He did the Ferris Bueller's Day Off thing with Omar Gonzalez and Sidney LaRue, which was awesome. Oh, I
actually saw him. Was it not like 2 seasons ago when we were closing out the season at Toyota Park? So I'm trying to get out of Toyota Park, and it's like a big crowd in the doorway, and and I'm like looking around like, oh my God, hurry up, people, hurry up, And I turn around next to me, I see Mike McGee, and I'm like, holy shit, have I been screaming like telling everybody to hurry up and move? And I told Mike McGee
and you're screaming at Mike McGee,
and then I turned around again, I'm like, hey, Magic Mike? He's like, yeah. Like, oh man, I just want to say, I'm a big fan. I remember that whole season, blah, blah, blah. Can I get your autograph? And he was there with his family. He was there with his kids. And I think one of his kids like, Dad, you're famous? And I remember I just started laughing because I guess even his kids didn't know that. No.
How old do you think those kids were?
No, those kids were probably like anywhere between 5 and 9 years old. Geez. But the thing is that, by the way, Mike McGee's a really nice guy. Like, honestly, he's probably one of my favorite Fire players, like in the top 10 easily. But he signed my jersey and I still have it. I eventually gotta get it. I gotta hang it up one day. But yeah. So Mike McGee, do you think Mike McGee belongs in the Ring of Fire?
You've sold me on it. He was so. The Ring of Fire isn't just like who has the best stats. It's also cultural impact. You know what I mean? Like
Dax
think about
McCarty.
No.
Dax McCarty had a bigger impact on this club than Bastian Schweinsteiger.
That's fine.
Mic drop. Bam.
No, I mean, I like Dax McCarty. I thought he was a good player. But I don't think he was. I don't know. It's just when you put him against guys like Nikolic, guys like Mike McGee. Considering that Mike McGee is a Chicago guy too. Dax reminds me more or less kind of like another Loretowitz. Just a guy that had that leadership quality, and
oh God,
he's a decent player.
Big Red.
Yeah.
I hated Jeff Loretowitz. The first thing I would do every FIFA is take him from the Fire and send him to the worst team on the game.
Wow.
Can't stand Jeff Loretowitz.
He wasn't bad.
I like Jeff Loretowitz.
So, oh man. God!
I've derailed the conversation. We got to go to commercial break.
We got to.
All right, guys. Yes. We'll be right back right after this. We'll be talking Heitz, a little bit of Shaqiri, and some tactics.
Well, it's just so Chicago, and it's so great. It's so like Like I'll be honest, since Mike McGee, I can't really think of a player I've like loved on the Fire. Like Sean Johnson, I was a huge fan of.
Yeah.
Like
Michael
Kalen Clark
Harrington?
I love. You're right.
Oh,
You're right.
Michael
You're
Harrington? Why would you bring that guy up?
Club legend.
Club legend Michael Harrington. He has a ride or die chick.
Yeah, he's infamous. He's not famous. He's infamous.
Oh my God, Michael Harrington's woman loves him. Okay, and I want you to know that's a good sign.
He's a good man.
All right, you gotta fill me in on that. You gotta fill me in on that because Michael Harrington to me is a guy that didn't want to do much on the field. He could barely he just made mistake after mistake after mistake. So that's my vision of Michael Harrington. I don't know what you guys are thinking about.
Got a lot of bad rap because I don't think Arne Frederick was all that great. I think Michael Harrington. I think when you're a defender,
Frederick was hurt all the time.
I think when you were a defender and you try to overcompensate for someone else's mistake, you end up being the guy posterized. So then everybody thinks you screwed up. Not
even that. Michael Harrington was Michael Harrington stood longer in this team than he should have been. I remember him in 2017. He was still with the team. Long after Arne Friedrich had retired.
Yeah, if he was still there in 2017, you're right. That was a little long. But
and this guy was hobbling around. I think he got hurt one time and the Fire ran out of subs and he tried to do this admirable job of trying to defend with one leg. Didn't work out. So
doesn't tend to.
So he was so bad that people were bitching about him all the time.
I know. I feel like I'm always so out of step with the rest of Fire fans. I love the guys that they all hate, and I hate Lorenowitz, and everybody's like, "Oh, he was God."
He's not God. He was just a guy that had to, stay by a really shitty Fire team.
Honestly, instantly already, Kellen Acosta is my favorite player on this team. All right,
thanks for tuning in to Enemies of the Fire podcast. Subscribe for more. We're gonna be here all season long. Can't wait.
Welcome back to Enemies of the Fire. We're going to discuss Heitz and was he deserving, we already know the answer, of another contract after 4 years of missing the playoffs.
DPG, what do you think?
So we're talking about Heitz here?
Yeah. And what's his leash? All that being said, 4 years of no playoffs.
He's done after. If we don't make the playoffs this year, I think he's done. You can't justify keeping him anymore. We've gone through 4 different roster changes.
Well, if that's his leash, what is Frank Klopas's? Especially knowing that Heitz moved on from Ezra Hendrickson after Ezra had about 46 games in him. He played about 10 in the 2023 season, and Heitz had seen enough of Ezra Hendrickson. How many more games does Frank Klopas have?
Well, if the writing is on the wall by the summer, meaning that the Fire are not going to make the playoffs, we pretty much are getting the wooden spoon. I think Klopas is done. They kind of go hand in hand. If the writing's on the wall, chances are Heitz is probably done at the end of the season. But they're probably going to get rid of Klopas, around the summer.
But they would have to get rid of both of them at that point because you can't let Heitz make the next. Yeah.
No, the Heitz is not going to. No, they're just going to let Heitz finish out the season. They're not going to let him hire anybody. They probably won't even let him sign anybody.
At that point, go hire Brian McBride, Mike McGee, and let them run this show.
Look, Brian McBride is happy doing his Fox Sports and analytics show, and he's happy coaching his daughter's soccer team. From what he told me last season, so he doesn't want the stress of coaching the Fire.
Well,
maybe
if I can jump in here and answer the original question James had was Heitz did not deserve to be back this year.
Nope.
And my full opinion on this is my opinion has slightly changed in the last couple months, and that is I think Heitz and Klopas are on this team no matter what for the rest of the season, for the whole season, because I think he trusts Heitz more than we do, obviously. And my opinion is Heitz, no matter what, should be done after this season. Because honestly, I feel like Kellen Acosta's free agency fell in your lap. How many other decent strikers were right? And how many other decent strikers were available in the window? Not a lot of strikers internationally moved even, right? Then how many, and then on top of that, you just took some decent defenders from a league and a team you're already associated with.
Yep.
Right? So it's like he still didn't do anything special. Like whoever, like they could have hired a trained monkey and he would have made these same moves. And so the team looks better. I just think we threw enough money at it enough years that it's finally worked out, like timing and money, right?
It's like a mirage for you.
You throw 20 million at the problem year after year, it's bound to get solved sometime.
Right. So I just feel like Heitz isn't the one to move us forward. He's like, he did this like this season. Just get rid of him, get somebody new. But I doubt that's going to happen because I think we'll make the playoffs this year.
Yeah, if they make the playoffs, they're going to keep him.
And to be honest, I'm dead serious. I don't think it's possible, but I actually think Joe thinks he can get one of these big names that's free this year. Either Pep or Jose Mourinho or the Klopp. I really no. You're all shaking your head. Trust me, it's not possible. But I actually think Joe kept Klopas specifically because of these openings that were going to happen.
Coke, you're talking about the 15th richest guy in MLS, not the third.
What's his ambition, though?
That's the question. That's a good.
You're talking about guys that, when you talk about Mourinho, Pep Guardiola, I don't know who else you mentioned. You're talking about guys that came out of leagues and teams that have hundreds of millions of dollars ready to buy players.
They're not coming over here for a project. They'll come over here for a cup of tea.
Yeah.
Like a one-season cup of tea and a Gatorade. But like a project, like Liverpool's level, those guys belong in the big leagues. And MLS is not the big leagues.
They belong there, but isn't that the last bastion, the last thing for Major League Soccer to cross is to
let me ask you this.
Go ahead.
How successful have European coaches been in the MLS?
They haven't been. But there's
you can even say the Fire. But
well, wait, hold on. Hans Flick did really, really well with New York. Like, let's not pretend the supporter shield is not important. It is. It's awesome.
It doesn't count. You need to win an MLS Cup and no US Open Cup. Supporter shield is just for the suckers, man.
What's Messi going to go for? The supporter shield or MLS Cup?
Okay, well, Messi knows marketing. Like, if you actually want to play good soccer and be a badass, like, win the supporter shield, right? But in all seriousness, like, that's the last. It's kind of the same thing I said about DPs. I want a guy to come here and be like, I've won everywhere I go, and I'm going to do it here. Because why not? I'm going to prove I'm better than everyone else.
That's what Schweinsteiger was. It just, he was that. He embodied that.
Well, and let's not pretend
embody physically.
Well, let's not pretend if in 2018, instead of letting half the good players go and signing no one, if we had made some signings and built on that team, we would have been really, really good. You know what I mean? Like,
well, that brings me to my next question about building, and it's looking at Shaqiri. We briefly touched on this, but is Shaqiri a bust as an MLS DP?
Yes.
Not yet. If this season goes, if we get bounced in the first round of the playoffs, and there aren't like 3 or 4 moments to hang on to this year from him, then yes. But
go
ahead.
No, I was gonna say. So the reason this is why I say he's kind of a bust. His output is like MLS average at best. Maybe a little bit over average. I think the highest amount of assists he had was like 11. There was plenty of other MLS guys that were, that had 15, 20 assists.
That are lower paid.
That are lower paid.
Much lower paid.
And everybody knows that Shaqiri is a complement piece. He's not supposed to be your centerpiece. He's not your main course. And he thrives on the success of other players, particularly in the midfield. If you get that midfield general, he'll thrive under those conditions. But this is the Fire. We haven't had a midfield general since God knows when. So
we do now, Mr. Kellen Acosta.
Yeah. So
I mean, dude, that's legit. When I heard these people talk about the Fire and like who's going to be the best player on the pitch for the Fire, and oftentimes it might not be Shaqiri, and that seems crazy when he's one of your highest paid DPs. Well, no longer. Kuipers is the highest paid DP on the Chicago Fire, so he's got to live up to that billing. Shaqiri, I'm hoping that they figure something out with him to kind of switch out to maybe the right side and maybe Guti or somebody somehow swings in.
Here's the thing, though. There was times when if Shaqiri wasn't playing and Guti started, Guti actually played better.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Right.
And that gets you thinking like maybe we don't need Shaq in the team. Maybe we just need to get another guy that's hungry and is younger.
Well, that brings me to my very next question. Is Shaqiri here at the end of this season?
Nah, not unless if we're on the precipice like Eastern Conference Finals, he might come back to finish the job.
Yeah.
If not, I think he's gone. I think he goes back home to Switzerland and plays in the Swiss League and just rides it out. Yeah. But I mean, honestly, I think Shaqiri. This is where we've even talked about this in this podcast. This is where the DP rule and the Major League Soccer rules kill you, because if we were just a team that didn't have to care what the payroll was because the boss paid it and nobody cared and we weren't going into administration, right? Then let's ask that question: is Shaqiri a bust or not?
Yeah.
I don't think so. I think he's just a piece on a team that didn't have enough pieces. He played well.
Wow. But yes, that changes the entire discussion, really.
Yeah.
If he's just overpaid and and you don't have a salary cap, so you could just go overpay another guy.
But the thing is, the Fire used him as their centerpiece. Like, that was going to be their main guy. That was going to be the main guy. He wasn't going to be just another cog. He was going to be the guy.
Well, I'm liking the spine I'm seeing here. Chicos, Acosta, Shaqiri, Kuipers. I mean, that's not a bad spine.
Now we have a decent squad. We have a stacked midfield.
And that brings me... Hold on. Okay, sorry.
No, with that stacked midfield, can we move into your other conversation?
Yeah, actually, you're nailing the head of the nail, because this is my core problem, is who to partner with Acosta. And to me, it's not Jimenez. It's not Federico Navarro. I'm sorry. Those guys don't track back. They're lazy bums. If you listen to this podcast, they're lazy. Pair him with one of them.
What? They're gonna pair him with one of those guys.
Well, they should pair him with Fabian Herbers. That's the perfect pairing for Acosta. Hear me out. Fabian Herbers tracks back. Fabian Herbers runs forward. Fabian Herbers knows how to dribble, knows how to pass, does all the things better than Jimenez as an offender, does all the better things than Jimenez as a defender, does all the better things than Fed as an offender. Maybe not as arguably a better defender as Federico Navarro, but that's where you got Acosta, who is the best defensive midfielder on this team. You pair him with Fabian Herbers. There's the cog to get the ball to Shaqiri, to Selassie, or if it's Mueller, or Guti, or Kuipers up front. That's your engine right there. It's Fabian Herbers.
So, it kind of reminds me of what the U.S. is doing. Like, it's almost like Shaq is in the Gio Reyna role. You've got Kellen Acosta to play the Musa role, and who's going to play the Destroyer, the Tyler Adams role, right?
Well, here, to argue that, I like Fabian Herbers. I do. He's like the utility man. He's a Swiss Army knife. The problem is Fabian Herbert does a lot better coming off the bench than when he does starting.
Well,
No,
I
you're right.
argue against this. I say let him start because he scores a lot of goals that way. He stores.
We have started him before, and then he's been at average at best. But somehow, when we call him from the bench, it's just he becomes like super sub.
Okay, maybe. But I was going to say then you have Gaston and Federico as super subs, and them as subs those are really solid MLS subs.
But
Gentlemen,
I think go ahead.
I was going to say, gentlemen, I think the worst possible thing happened to us the other day, and Gaston scored a golazo.
Oh, no.
I saw that.
And I think Frank is going to start him and think he's good.
Well, then there's DPG's plan, because then you could bring in Herbers for.
Yeah, that's the thing. I honestly think that Federico's probably more suited to accompany Acosta because Federico likes to move around the field.
He does not. He barely tracks back.
No,
you look at his stats. Look at his stats. By the way, something blew me away. Brady had a better statistical year than Slonina last season. Does that blow your mind?
Not necessarily, but I think Slonina. I think Slonina had an even worse defense.
Yeah,
to be honest.
Yeah,
he did. Yeah,
I think that was the big problem.
Oh,
that wiles me out. So now I have a real serious question for the two of you.
Yeah.
Okay.
So now we're looking at one of the biggest holes in the roster, which is Fetty and Gaston.
Mm-hmm.
Do you use your open young DP slot in the summer on a central defensive midfielder or on a winger?
You got to find Acosta's partner. You got to find somebody who could help create chances from the midfield.
Well, we have to see how Frank plays his lineup, because if he goes with the 4-4-2, at that point, why not use the young DP spot to get another striker? Because it's a little thin up there. It's a little thin up there.
It is thin, but you have a kid. Why not play the kid? We've had this conversation before.
Mm-hmm.
But do you actually think he's going to play a 4-4-2 ? Because I've always Frank has always played a 4-3 or a 4-2-3-1. Always.
He's gonna start. He's gonna pack the midfield.
Well, we'll see, because we remember when we read Kuiper's profile, he's kind of like our last striker, Pershabilko, who needs that partner striker. So I do wonder if we'll see a 4-4-2 or a 4-2-3-1.
I'm gonna actually do some research. I'm gonna find out exactly how many goals Shabilko just straight scuffed, like goals that were instant goals that he just screwed up. Because honestly, I feel like Kuipers puts all those away. And
by the way, Casper is gone too. Just for
he's gone.
viewers.
Gone
he's
to
in Lugano.
Yep, Lugano. I saw the picture. It looked sad. It looked a little sad. Like, he looked sad. The guy signing him looked sad because they all looked powerless. Like Pershabilko did not choose that. I mean, like, if you're gonna present him anywhere, I guess he'll accept that. And the same thing with the FC Lugano general manager. He got told what to do.
Yeah, he got told.
You could see it in his eyes.
Phone call. He got that phone call, said, "Hey, you're gonna sign this guy, and that's it.
That's it.
And you're gonna like it. That's it.
And you're gonna smile when you take the picture."
But then MLS called Heitz and said, "Hey, I like what you did there. I like what you did with Casper there, by the way. That's gonna count as a buyout for your season."
Yeah,
click.
Which is fine because they mutually terminated Hyro.
Mm-hmm.
So Shabilko had kids and stuff. Like he wasn't terminating his contract. Like, he needed to move. Like,
well, let me ask you this:
he's a kid.
I think Casper bought a house in the Chicagoland area.
Damn.
So, well, hold on. He's probably gonna play. He's gonna retire. He's probably gonna live in the Chicagoland area.
Yeah.
I think his wife's family's from here. So, good for him.
Well, I mean, it makes sense. There's the huge Polish community here in Chicago.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yep.
Which I don't know. Do you know any Polish people?
You got one right here.
Jesus, man.
Yaktam.
Yeah.
Such a style. Movie football school.
Chess. Jesus, guys. When you grow up in Chicago, you pick up Polish.
Oh, it's true.
I know.
You said it. You got it.
That's so funny,
You
man.
got it. Everybody, thanks for joining us here on Enemies of Fire. It's been a heck of a show. We're gonna clip this up and send it out, and this will also be a whole show. This has been fun, guys. This is what is this? Our third?
Yeah. Our
Yeah,
third
this is
show.
is it our third or fourth?
This is our third or fourth. Well, I mean, we've got more than that, but
We gotta pay attention.
And well, what's the plan
Yeah.
going forward? Are we doing this weekly or every other weekly?
Yeah, so for the listener, if you made it this far, you fucking rule. Thank you. Like, subscribe, all that other nonsense, man. Comments.
Comment. We love to read them.
Don't bother us on social media and the Discord, whatever, man.
Yeah.
We're here. Come hang out at the games. We'll like at least two of us will be at most of them.
Yeah.
And
I'll try to be at a few, and follow us at Enemies of Fire on Twitter.
and every week, I don't know if we have a day yet. What do you guys want to do? We'll talk about that off camera. But
Yeah.
we're going every week now since the season's about to. Well, the season did start tonight.
Our Mondays have been great. I like
Yeah.
that.
But yeah, like I can't tell you. In the last, I don't know, even 2017, I wasn't excited. I didn't see them playing that well. So to be honest, the only time in the last 10 years I've been excited was that 2020 team where
Mhm.
we all were like, "Oh, Jairo Torres is going to be great. Gaston Jimenez, this is awesome." Like that was the last time I was excited. But
2017 was excitement.
oh man, this is
with Boston, yeah.
But then they missed because 2018 they did nothing to build on that
they
excitement.
tore down. They didn't build
They
anything.
tore down.
They tore down.
So you're
But
right about that. And 2020 was the last time that we kind of felt excitement. And I agree with you. I am feeling legitimate excitement for this team. Like I see every MLS pundit picking them for 9th, 10th, and 11th, and I understand why. It's because the Fire have buried themselves to a point. Like they are fighting an uphill battle where a team like Atlanta is not. They're fighting a maintaining battle. They're just trying to maintain where the Fire are trying to get where Atlanta is, and they do not have anywhere near the players of depth of talent in every position that a team like Atlanta, a team like Seattle, a team like Austin FC, FC Cincinnati even. Fire are behind the grand majority of the teams in MLS, so that's why I understand when they're picking them to come in 9th, 10th, and 11th. However, I do think that the Fire have the pieces to surprise.
And
do
the
too. I
measuring
think-
stick is on Saturday.
Yep. I think the only issue for us is if they don't gel fast enough.
Yeah.
If we see like them not understanding each other, like the run goes one way and the ball goes the other.
I don't know if that's going to be likely because Guti's another year older with Shaqiri, with his second year playing with Shaqiri. Like these guys are molding together. So with another year of Fabian Herbers here. Finally, Fabian Herbers is one of the old heads on the team. Chico's another season of seasoning. Gutman returning with something to prove finally. Wanting to be here. Gaston Jimenez
got
having an
Soulfus, you
absolute
got Rigoni.
resurgence.
Aragoni's the one I think is going to surprise everybody.
I
He's
think
the one.
I'm
I put him
hoping
on my
so.
fantasy team. He's the one that's going to be
so.
that's going to surprise everybody. He's
So-
going to be hungry.
I think
Join our
in
MLS
terms-
Fantasy. Link in the description. Bam. Sorry, go on.
No, I was gonna say I think that our defense and midfield are stacked. Our striker position is a little could use some work, but we'll see what happens. Saturday is a measuring stick. We're gonna face against Philadelphia, which, by the way, tough team. Didn't they win a supporter shield or close to winning a supporter shield last season?
They were in
good.
MLS Cup last year or
Oh, they were
2 years ago.
2 years
Yeah, they
ago.
were
So,
in 2 years ago.
so yeah, it's a tough Philly team. I think what we see on Saturday might not be representative of what we'll see 2 months from now.
No,
but-
early
Yeah, we might
MLS
stumble
never
out
is.
the gate. I think we'll stumble out the gate, but I think we'll surprise Cincy at home,
Yeah.
man.
Yep.
I think it's going to be raucous. I think it's not going to be full, but we're going to have a lot of people in Soldier Field. It's going to be a good vibe. I'm looking forward to all of it.
Hope to see you guys there, everybody. Hopefully we get a Chicago
Peace.
Fire win. Enemies of the Fire podcast. Guys, punt that like button. Kick it like a corner kick. And comment below. We love to read them. Guys, signing off. Or is it got any other ones?
Much love, everyone.
Take it easy, guys. Good night.
Good night.